This one's tough. A father in New York whose one-year-old twins died after he left them in a hot car had father in court today. He'll have to wait to find out whether he'll face prosecution. The judge set his next hearing for the 27th of this month. Cameras were not allowed inside, but our producer was in the courtroom and says that Juan Rodriguez appeared distraught while his wife and children sat in the row behind him. Rodriguez now faces manslaughter and negligent homicide charges, plus endangering the welfare of a child. He says on Friday he dropped his older child off in daycare with the twins inside the car in the back seat. Then he drove to work in the Bronx. Wasn't until he left his office later that day and started driving again that he realized his kids were still in the back of the car. It was super hot in New York on Friday, really hot, and they died there. He told police he just blanked out, that he didn't remember. And his wife says he's a great father, would never hurt his children on purpose, never. He is not that person. There's a chance Rodriguez will not face prosecution. Prosecutors get to make their own decisions whether to move forward with a case like this. The nonprofit group Cars and Kids reports their research shows in almost 40% of accidental death cases, 40%, parents do not face charges. So why? Bob Bianchi's here. He's a former prosecutor who worked on several cases where children died in hot cars, currently a criminal defense attorney. This is so hard.
Right.
Because you know, the father, who by all accounts is a great father, think of what he's going through.
He's got a life sentence right there, Shep, and that's why as a prosecutor, if there was no other evidence of child abuse or neglect, or they weren't under the influence of drugs or alcohol, and they simply made a tragic mistake, I never prosecuted because I knew, what are we going to do? We're going to hit a fly with a sledgehammer here and put this person in jail. Is that really accomplishing deterrence? Is that really something that is in the best interest of society? I don't think so, absent any other circumstances, which appears in this particular case. This was a good father who just forgot, and I don't think you can prove a case forgetfulness isn't necessarily negligence.
Without passing any judgment, there's another argument, and that is the court has to be the advocate for the child who is now gone. And the court has to make these decisions. And we're all human beings. That must be very hard for those who make these decisions.
It is. It's gut-wrenching. And really, the prosecutor is going to make the charging call as to whether they're going to present this case to a grand jury or not. They've only charged right now.
What kind of things play into this? The obvious ones you've already talked about. But like the stress of the day, what plays into this?
Yeah, you really want to debrief the guy and find out exactly what it was that led him to forget. First of all, you want to be convinced that he forgot. It wasn't just one of these situations where he said, I'll leave him in there and they'll be fine, because that's a completely different case.
Right.
Then you actually face the risk, and you made a choice to put that child in that harm's way, and that child died. That person would get prosecuted. You have two victims here, so that's something that's going to be weighty on the prosecutor as well. The twins. But
does what the mom says have any?
Yes, Shep, great question. I mean, she is a victim as well.
Oh, God.
And if that mother is going to say, listen, here, this is what I'd be saying as the defense attorney, and they got Joey Jackson, he's a very good lawyer, he's a personal friend of mine,
Yeah,
and they're going to be sitting there and they're going to say, wait a minute now, are you going to harm this wife and the other children further by incarcerating for anywhere between 5 to 15 years, which is one of the charges against him? Does that make any sense? Listen, let's not criminalize what is a tragic accident, because over the last 2 decades, Shep, things that used to just be considered accidents that could be handled in civil courts, for some reason have become criminalized, and I think we need to take a step back from that in a case like this.
So it depends on the prosecutor and how the prosecutor thinks about this sort of thing. This man's rest of his life is in that hand. Should this be more institutionalized? Should there be stricter rules? Or is using your own common sense when everyone doesn't have common sense the right way to go? Another
great question. Prosecutors are reposed with a tremendous amount of discretion in charging decisions and whether to go forward with cases or not. And as you suggest, one case in one county, a prosecutor could sit there and say, no way am I going to charge for this. And you could step over a geographical line into another place where you got a prosecutor that's like, I'm going to charge every single case like this. So while there is disparity there, and I know that nobody likes disparity in the legal system, I'm still not a fan of having a one-size-fits-all approach. I think each county prosecutor should, within their jurisdiction, be able to, hopefully, if they're competent and they're professional and they know what they're doing, make their own decisions.
Your heart hurts for all of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Bob.
You got it, Chef.